Her parents paid for her sister's entire college tuition, but didn't give her a single cent. For 4 years straight, they treated her like a shadow on the edge of the family. But on graduation day, right there in the middle of campus, their faces went pale like they'd just seen something unbelievable. Want to know what silenced that entire family? Stick with us for this intense story. Elena couldn't remember exactly when she first felt like she didn't belong. Maybe it was that summer when she was 8, when Susan, her mom, handmade a brand new floral dress for Madison, then turned to Elena and said, "You're not really the girly type, let your sister wear the sporty stuff too." That was the moment the invisible line between the two sisters started to form. Madison was the golden child. Everyone could see it. Blonde hair, fair skin, eyes always wide and sweet like a porcelain doll in a glass case. She knew exactly when to smile, when to nod. Elena, on the other hand, even as a kid, couldn't sit still. She asked too many questions, argued too much, and was just a little too stubborn for a girl her age. "She always wants to argue," Robert would say at dinner whenever Elena tried to explain why she disagreed with something she learned at school. She wasn't yelling, wasn't being rude, she just dared to question. Whenever relatives came over, Madison got called out to sing, dance, show off her drawings, talk about her school festival. Elena? She was told to clear the dishes. "Your sister doesn't really like soft, girly stuff. Let her do something more practical," Susan would say in the calmest, most casual tone. But for Elena, that was the first turning point. She wasn't seen, wasn't celebrated. At home, every decision revolved around Madison. The meals, the outings, even nap time. "Your sister needs to rest, you're older now. Let Madison choose first, you're the stronger one. Don't pressure her, she's sensitive." Elena remembered every word, not because she didn't love her little sister, but because year after year, the favoritism stopped being subtle and became the norm. When Elena was 12, her teacher asked to meet with her parents privately because she had scored the highest in her math class. Robert went with her, but he only asked one question. "Did you get into any trouble?" Elena said no, and that was the end of the meeting. That same year, Madison was chosen to play the angel in the church performance. The whole family showed up, bought flowers, filmed everything. Elena stood behind the camera, holding coats for her parents, a shadow in the background of her own family. She couldn't remember exactly when she cried. Maybe it was the night of her 15th birthday, when the cake had a single candle and a rushed "Happy Birthday" scribbled on top. Susan said, "Come on, I was so busy. Madison just got sick yesterday, remember?" Elena cut the cake, then washed the dishes by herself. A few years later, Elena overheard Susan on the phone with their aunt in Texas. "Elena, she's smart, but hard to connect with. Now Madison, that's the real deal. She's sweet, gentle, everyone loves her." That sentence burned itself into Elena's memory like a tattoo that couldn't be erased. Your sister is the future of this family. It wasn't that Elena didn't try. She once wrote a handwritten apology to her mom after talking back. She quietly helped Madison with math homework, even though no one asked her to. But nothing ever made her the ideal child in her parents' eyes. So she chose silence. Silence when Madison got praised. Silence when her birthday was forgotten. Silence when her mom said, "White dresses just don't suit you." Elena grew up like a fence post in an open field. No one tended to her, no one watered her. But still, she stayed rooted, because she knew, if she didn't stand her ground, no one else would. By senior year, Elena had stopped hoping for recognition. But that didn't mean she didn't want a fair shot. When the college application notice came in from school, the whole family sat around the dinner table, each with their own mood. Madison was excited, and Susan gave her that soft smile. "What major do you think suits you best, Madison?" "Media design," her sister said, practically glowing. "New England Art School has a really strong program for that." Robert nodded without hesitation. "Sounds modern and creative. Totally fits her." Within a week, they had planned a campus visit, bought plane tickets, booked a hotel. Susan even said, "You're on the right path with art. Those fields are easier to get into these days. Plus, women should have a touch of elegance." Elena sat next to them, silent. She had already picked her major too, software engineering. But no one asked what she wanted to study. That night, she left a printed brochure for the computer engineering program at the local state university on the kitchen counter. It was affordable, close to home, and well known for tech. The next morning, Robert glanced at it, set it down, and said nothing. At dinner, he finally spoke up. "This field, it's full of guys. It'll be hard for you to fit in, and jobs aren't guaranteed. Besides, who even wants to marry an engineer?" Susan chimed in. "I think if you studied management or education, it'd be easier to find direction. Engineering just sounds so heavy." Elena replied, "I like programming. I want to build real products. And I've already checked all the requirements. I qualify." No one argued, but that silence, it wasn't agreement, it was rejection. 2 days later, they came back from Madison's campus tour. They brought glossy brochures, a tuition deposit agreement, and tons of printed photos that went straight onto the fridge. "The campus is like a dream," Susan said. "The faculty is so friendly. The tuition's a bit high, but it's worth it." $60,000 a year, Robert added, "but the girls got talent. When you invest in the right place." Elena stood by the fridge, holding the application fee slip for the engineering school. She had 3 days to submit it. She handed the paper to her parents and said quietly, "I need $70 to send in my application." Robert let out a dry laugh. "Don't you think you should reconsider? I mean, a smart person picks the right path. Being stubborn doesn't make it a good one." Susan added, "You're smart, I know that, but you have to be realistic. Some things just aren't meant for girls. Being an engineer, sometimes it means giving up a lot and still not getting the recognition." Elena replied, "Which is exactly why I have to do it." Robert went quiet, then said one final thing, like a verdict. "We're not stopping you. But if you want to take your own path, then you'll have to walk it alone." Elena went back to her room, opened her laptop, and logged into her bank account. 18 years old, with no real savings. But she could work. She could take out loans. She might move slower, but she wouldn't move backward. That night, while Madison picked out paint colors for her new dorm room, Elena made a list of every scholarship she could apply for. Each line on the screen was her way of saying she didn't need anyone to invest in her to be worth it. She wasn't her family's choice, but she could still be her own. Elena never asked again. After that cold conversation, she filled out the forms herself, submitted everything on her own, and chose the path her parents never believed she could take. Massachusetts State University. Not glamorous, not prestigious like the place Madison was heading to, but it had the programming classes she dreamed of. And most importantly, it was affordable enough for a girl who wasn't worth investing in to survive on her own. She started freshman year with a night shift at a grocery store. Monday through Friday, classes from morning till late afternoon. Evenings, she worked from 6 to 11. On weekends, she cleaned dorm rooms to cut down living expenses. Every dollar she earned mattered. No one sent her spending money. No car. No shared bank account. Every meal was budgeted down to the cent. Every decision, whether to buy coffee or print in color, had to be calculated. The lecture halls weren't easy. The algorithms class made a lot of the guys quit halfway through. But Elena stuck with it. She found her own way. Study groups with international students in the same boat, recording lectures to listen to while cleaning, writing code on paper when her laptop battery died. No one patted her on the back. No one checked in when she pulled all-nighters. Meanwhile, Madison stayed active on Instagram. One night, after a shift, Elena got back to her dorm and scrolled through her phone. Her sister had just checked in at a rooftop bar with the caption, "Life is art, and I'm the masterpiece." The post came with a photo of her and her boyfriend, the son of a well-known real estate family. Hundreds of likes rolled in. Meanwhile, Elena had just been fined $25 for missing a laundry payment deadline. She replied to Madison's message with one word, "Seen," then flipped her phone face down. It wasn't jealousy. She just saw the gap growing wider. Same two sisters, but one was living under party lights and the other working under the harsh glow of warehouse fluorescents. In her second year, Elena landed an unpaid internship at a small software company. She worked as a data research assistant, spending hours staring at spreadsheets until her eyes blurred. In return, she got to learn how a product functioned from the inside out. Every day, after class, she took 2 buses to get to the office. She left at 7 p.m., then started her fast food shift until midnight. Sleepless nights piled up. Some nights she passed out at her desk with a sticky note reminding her to wake up at 4 a.m. to finish an assignment. Other times, she typed up technical docs while eating cup noodles, hands shaking from the cold, the hunger, the exhaustion. Every trip home felt like an emotional test. Susan always asked the same kind of questions. You still don't have anyone? Does anyone at school even notice you? Don't become one of those women who only knows how to study and forgets how to live. Elena didn't respond. She just picked at her vegetables, ate her rice, washed the dishes. Madison, meanwhile, was gushing about her trip to New York with her boyfriend, flashing a new Tiffany bracelet he'd given her. Robert looked on, nodding approvingly. That girl knows how to pick a boyfriend. That's what it means to know how to live. Just once, Elena pushed back, softly. Not everyone has that kind of privilege, Dad. You know that. Robert set his chopsticks down and looked at her. I'm not talking about privilege. I'm talking about choices. Living well means choosing the right path. She didn't say anything else. She just thought to herself, then let's see how far the wrong path takes me. She kept going. In her junior year, she earned a spot in the applied research program. Instead of just writing code, she started testing small ideas for real-world products. No one at home knew she was collaborating with a professor who'd once been recruited by Google. What they did know was that Madison had just been nominated as lead for her art school's upcoming exhibit. As for Elena, no one asked. But she no longer needed anyone to ask. She was used to being forgotten. Used to eating instant noodles at night and wishing herself good luck in silence. Used to succeeding with no one watching. 3 years passed. No path was smooth. But every time she felt worn out, she remembered her father's words. Only those who know how to live are worth investing in. She wouldn't prove that with talk. She'd prove it with results. And their neglect was exactly what kept her moving forward. In her final year, Elena entered a phase she never expected. The years of stretching every work hour, every budget meal. They left a clear mark on her transcript. Her GPA ranked in the top 3% of the entire department. The applied research project she'd been working on with Professor Heller received high praise from the academic board and was nominated for a university-wide recognition. Then, one afternoon, while she was in the library proofreading a scholarly paper, an email popped up from Student Affairs. Congratulations, Elena Carter. You've been awarded the Senior Honors Scholarship for Outstanding Undergraduate Research. She read it over and over, 3 times, not because she didn't believe she deserved it, but because, for the first time, some system, even one that didn't know her, recognized the effort she thought only she had ever seen. 3 days later, another email came in. The subject line was simple. Commencement Speaker Invitation, School of Engineering. She read it in silence. No smile, no tears. She just sat up a little straighter and clicked accept. She didn't tell anyone. No texts, no calls home. For some, this would be the moment to invite the entire family. For Elena, it was something she needed to keep to herself. Not out of bitterness, but because she couldn't bear one more indifferent look. She spent the next 2 weeks writing her speech. Writing, deleting, editing, crossing out, rewriting. Every period was followed by the same question. Does this sentence really need to be here? She didn't want to play the victim, didn't want to complain, but she refused to say anything fake either. The first draft was 4 pages long. She wrote about sleepless nights, the smell of grease at the fast food joint, and cold meals eaten mid-shift. But when she read it back, she tore it up. No. She didn't need pity. The second draft was shorter. It focused on her academic journey, the challenges women face in tech. But it felt too safe. Too much like a speech edited to please everyone. The night before the deadline, she opened her laptop one last time. Hands on the keyboard, she wrote, not to make her parents understand, but to make them remember. She wrote each sentence like she was laying down stone, one piece at a time, rebuilding the road she had walked. I was not the one who was chosen. No one held my hand through the school gates. No one paid my tuition. But I'm here because I didn't quit. Her words were sharp, clean, stripped of extra emotion. Only the truth remained. I didn't have bedtime stories with my family. I had all-nighters and deadlines. I didn't get praise. I got silence. She didn't write a long speech. She didn't analyze. She didn't try to make anyone feel guilty. She just told it exactly how it happened. At 3 a.m., she read it one last time. The blue glow from the screen lit up her face, thinner than the year before, but her eyes were steadier than ever. She saved the file, named it simply Graduation Speech Final.pdf. There was no one to show it to. But she didn't need anyone. Not anymore. On the day she submitted it, she walked to the Student Affairs office, printed 2 hard copies, and sealed them in a plain white envelope. When the staff member asked if she wanted to send an invitation to her family, she just shook her head. "I'll be there," she said. "By myself is enough." On the way back, she passed a group of students studying in the courtyard. A few of them were laughing, cracking under the pressure of finals. She paused for a few seconds, then kept walking. Because she knew the hardest part was behind her. And the most important part was just about to begin. On graduation day, Elena woke up earlier than usual. She tied her hair up, folded the rented gown she'd picked up last week, then double-checked her old camera and the bouquet of lavender she'd bought for herself. No one called to remind her. No one asked if she needed anything for the day. She packed everything into a faded tote bag and caught the earliest bus to campus. On the way, she saw other students in caps and gowns, holding balloons and flowers, surrounded by family and partners. Everyone was smiling. Everyone had someone walking beside them. Elena slipped her hands into her coat pockets, steadying her mind against things that didn't belong to her. When she arrived, she found her way to the designated area for engineering students. The public university was holding the ceremony outdoors in the central plaza. The sun had just risen. Rows of chairs were neatly arranged. Families crowded into the shade, calling out to each other, laughing, snapping photos. Elena picked a seat in the 3rd row, somewhere in the middle. Her camera rested on her lap, set to timer mode. The bouquet sat on her left. No one was there to take pictures for her, to hold her things, or simply to sit beside her. She had prepared herself for that. Everything was going according to plan, until she looked up and saw them. Her dad, her mom, and Madison. They stood near the campus entrance, scanning the signs posted around. Susan held a printed copy of the graduation schedule, while Robert was saying something to one of the student volunteers. Madison tugged on her mother's sleeve, pointing toward the stage. Elena froze for a few seconds. Her heart didn't race. Just one thought flashed through her mind. They didn't come for me. And then she understood. Madison's art school was part of the same state university system, but located on a different campus, about a mile away. Most likely, they had mixed up the locations, or the dates. Madison's ceremony was scheduled for the following afternoon. Not today. Not here. Elena stayed seated. She didn't lower her head. She didn't look away. Her eyes met Susan's. In that instant, both of them understood exactly what was happening. But neither one moved. Madison whispered something to their dad. They all took a few steps back, moving out of the audience area. It looked like they were trying to figure out whether to stay, to leave, or to wait a bit longer for clarification. Elena stopped watching. She turned her face toward the stage. Everything was moving forward as planned. Names were being called. Applause echoed rhythmically. She rested her hand on the bouquet, steadying herself. There were no questions in her mind, no "why are they here?" Only one crystal-clear realization. They still didn't know she was about to speak. They came for someone else. Wrong day, wrong place. And just in time, for the moment she was about to step on stage, for the first time in 4 years. She wasn't angry, she wasn't sad. She didn't feel hurt, she was used to things being off, used to not being chosen. She simply took a deep breath, straightened the collar of her gown, and waited for her name to be called. No need for anyone's confirming glance. No hand reaching out to wave her forward. She knew she was about to rise, and that was enough. When her name was called, Elena stood up. Applause rose from the student section, not loud, not explosive, just enough to show respect. She walked to the stage with calm, steady steps, not rushed, not slow. No one called out her name from the crowd. No proud eyes waited for her, but none of that shook her. She adjusted the mic, placed the paper, folded neatly in quarters on the podium. Her eyes faced forward, and the first words came out, clear, steady, without a hint of hesitation. No one believed I'd be standing here, not even my family. The room went quiet instantly. Like someone had turned the volume all the way down, heads began to turn. A few eyes shifted toward the audience, scanning, guessing. Elena stood still. She didn't explain. She didn't rush to soften the words she'd just spoken. She let them hang in the air, undeniable, unavoidable. Not bitter. Not angry. Just real. 4 years ago, I applied to college without a family dinner to celebrate. No one took me on a campus tour. No one asked what I wanted to study. I filled out the forms, submitted them, and waited, alone. She paused for a beat. The day I got my acceptance letter, I printed it out and taped it to my dorm wall. I didn't send it to anyone, because I knew no one would care. The campus plaza stayed silent. The students who had been laughing earlier were now sitting upright. No coughs, no creaking chairs. People like to say college is the best time of your life. For me, it was constant calculation. 18 hours of work every week. Waking up at 5 a.m. to finish assignments before my shift. Lunch was a $2 sandwich. I had to think twice every time I printed something in color, because it cost 15 cents more than black and white. A student in the front row lowered their head slightly, scribbling something into their palm. The university's camera panned slowly across the audience, and during all that time, I heard every kind of question. Why would a girl study engineering? Who would ever marry someone like that? People who know how to live don't choose that path. She looked up. Yes, I heard it all. Every word. A few parents in the crowd began glancing around, trying to match the story to a face. One of the official cameras panned toward the right side of the audience. Just as Susan Carter's eyes met the lens, she didn't look away, but her lips pressed tightly together. Robert, beside her, gripped the edge of his chair. Madison wasn't in the frame. I'm not saying all this to blame anyone. I'm not standing here to call out the people who turned away. I just want to say, everything you see today, this gown, this diploma, this stage, they're all the result of someone who was never chosen. Her voice stayed steady. It didn't falter. It didn't waver. It moved through the microphone like a quiet current, reaching every row of seats. I don't have a graduation party, no relatives shouting my name from the back row. But I have something not everyone gets. The ability to stand tall when no one stands with you. She smiled, just a little. Not the smile of celebration, but the soft breath of someone finally reaching the end of a long, quiet road. And if you're hearing me right now, whether you had support or none at all, whether you were told you didn't fit, weren't good enough, weren't the right kind, I want you to know, you can still get here. You don't need to be chosen. You just need to not stop. Applause broke out, scattered at first, then rising and rippling through the entire plaza. Elena bowed her head. No long pause, no waving to the crowd. She folded her paper, stepped down from the stage. As she passed the camera, she didn't look into the lens. There was no need to capture her face. Everything that mattered had already been recorded in the words she had spoken. And somewhere behind the stage, Susan Carter remained seated, eyes locked on the now empty podium. No one said a word. That speech wasn't meant to convince anyone. It was meant to remind them. They weren't there. But she was. Elena left the stage through the side path that led down toward the engineering wing. Applause still echoed behind her, but she didn't look back. No second bow. No lingering to wait for compliments, conversations, or photo requests. She walked straight to the back hallway behind the computer science building, where the light was dimmer, where the quiet was just enough for her to breathe on her own. She pulled her phone from her coat pocket and turned off silent mode. No new messages, no missed calls. Her camera was still in the tote bag, untouched since that morning. The lavender bouquet was a little crushed, pressed beneath the folded ceremony program. She didn't bother fixing it. She stood there for a few minutes, listening to the distant noise of the crowd. Other students were hugging their parents, their partners, their best friends. Voices calling out, camera shutters snapping, laughter erupting every time another name was announced. It was a real celebration for the ones who had someone to share it with. Elena didn't. She looked around the campus. They were gone. Her dad, her mom, Madison. No one came up to her after the speech. No small talk, no one waiting at the foot of the stairs. At some point they had left, when exactly she didn't know. Maybe right after the speech ended. Maybe the moment she said her first line, she thought she'd feel bitter. But she didn't. The feeling was like a glass drained of water. What remained was just a dry, dull bottom. Not sad, not angry, just done. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She just felt light, as if she'd finally set down a weight she'd carried for years and realized she'd made it all the way through without needing to push beyond what was hers to carry. She walked slowly along the stone path that curved toward the library. The benches by the man-made lake were mostly empty. She sat down, took out her headphones, opened the voice recording of her speech, saved from days before, not to listen to it again, but to send it out. Elena scrolled through her contacts and tapped the first name under R. Rena Tran. Her only close friend from high school, the first person who didn't think Elena was weird, just someone who knew what she wanted too early. She attached the audio file, then typed a short message. I thought they'd get it, but they didn't come to understand. Message sent. She stared at the phone screen for a few seconds, then turned it off. She wasn't waiting for Rena to reply. She didn't need comfort. What she needed was for one person to know the truth. Someone who'd listen all the way through. No interruptions. No let it go. A light breeze brushed across the lake. The late afternoon sun was starting to sting a little. Elena opened her water bottle, took a small sip, and set her phone aside. She leaned back on the bench, eyes closed. This moment, no medals, no cameras, no one walking up with flowers saying, "I'm so proud of you." But she didn't feel the absence of any of it, because for the first time, none of the gazes mattered. She had said everything, not to please anyone, not to blame anyone, just to remind the world she was here. Fully, rightfully, exactly where she belonged. And in that silence, she didn't feel alone. The next morning, Elena woke up to over 300 notifications on her phone. Texts, emails, missed calls, all flooding in after a night where all she had expected was sleep. A student from the media department had clipped and reposted her graduation speech. Within 8 hours, it had already passed 1 million views. The title of the video was short but sharp. No one believed I'd be standing here. Not even my family. The comments poured in below. Many people recognized her, mentioning moments they'd seen her in the library, in the lab, or wiping down tables in the campus cafeteria. One person wrote, "I saw her washing mugs in the study lounge at 2 a.m. Just found out who she really is." But the top pinned comment came from a complete stranger. This is a wake-up call for every parent who values obedience over their child's actual worth. Elena read each line slowly. Not to seek sympathy, but to be sure she had said what needed to be said. She didn't need to play the victim to be heard. She just needed to be seen clearly. That same day, the university officially shared her speech on its homepage. Local media outlets started reaching out for interviews. A major newspaper ran the headline, "From Zero to Honors Engineer, the story of a girl rejected by her family." Elena didn't respond to all of them. She chose one single conversation, a podcast on education, where she walked through her academic journey without mentioning a single name. Not long after, one special email appeared in her inbox. Google, Software Engineering Graduate Program Offer Letter. No additional interviews were required. They'd seen the speech. They'd reviewed her research portfolio. There was nothing left for her to prove. Elena printed out the offer letter, placed it on her desk, looked at the starting salary, a number her 18-year-old self once believed was only for other people's kids. She didn't mail a copy to her parents. She didn't text Madison. She didn't mention the ceremony. Naturally, the old connection just faded. Not out of resentment, but because it simply no longer belonged in the story she was now writing. Instead, she sent a photo of the offer letter to Rena, the only person who had received the full audio of her speech the day before. The message she added was just one line. "I think that's enough, right?" And Rena replied with a single emoji. Elena folded the letter neatly and slipped it into an envelope. Then she stood up and stepped out of the tiny apartment that had been her only refuge for the past 4 years. She looked up at the sunlight filtering through the trees, the same sunlight from that day she walked onto the stage alone. She smiled. Not a dramatic, tearful smile. Just a quiet one, like everything had finally fallen into place. I'm the investment they refused to make, and I still paid off, brilliantly, without anyone betting on me. And she knew, for the rest of her life, she'd be the one writing the story. No one else's approval required. 1 year after graduation, Elena moved to Seattle. a city of rain, lights, and more opportunity than she ever expected. She started her job at a global tech company, full-time role, six-figure salary, office view overlooking the bay. But the thing she valued most was the small ID badge clipped to her chest, printed with the words, Software Engineer, Elena Carter. No one brought her to that moment, and no one could take it away from her. She lived on the 12th floor of a small apartment, compact but open, filled with natural light. At night, she often walked home through the central plaza, stopped by her favorite bookstore to grab some tea, read a few pages, then returned to the quiet of her own space. And it was in that bookstore that she met Jamie. He was tall, with slightly curly hair, loved reading historical fiction, and always carried a film camera. The first time they spoke was when he helped her pull a stuck book from the top shelf. The second was when they both reached for a copy of How to Do Nothing during the same sale. The third was a 3-hour coffee date. No yawns, no phones, no pretending. Jamie didn't ask where she went to school. He didn't mention her salary. He didn't care who her parents were. He just asked, "What did you dream of being when you were little?" She hesitated, then answered honestly, "I dreamed of being somewhere I didn't have to prove my worth every day." Jamie didn't reply right away. He simply smiled and said, "Sounds like you've made it there." They started dating. No rush, no loud promises, but it was steady. Jamie always gave her space on stressful days, but somehow still managed to be exactly where she needed him when it counted. When she told him about the speech, Jamie didn't shower her with praise. He just nodded and said, "I think you won long before you ever stepped on that stage." On her 24th birthday, Jamie reserved a table at a quiet little French restaurant tucked away at the end of a calm street. At the end of dinner, he handed her a box, not a ring, a ticket for a weekend photography workshop. "I don't know if you like cameras," he said, "but if you ever want to tell stories in a different way, this could be a place to start." Elena has kept that ticket on her desk ever since. As for her family, nothing had really changed. Susan called once and left a short voicemail. "I know you're busy. Just wanted to say your dad and I saw the speech. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here." Elena didn't call back, not out of anger, but because she didn't need to anymore. Everyone grows on their own timeline. Elena just wasn't sure if theirs would ever line up with hers. And she was okay with that. She kept living, kept loving, kept writing the next chapter of her life with someone who truly saw her. Not because she was obedient, not because she fit, but because she was fully, unapologetically herself. Love didn't come to heal her wounds. It came to remind her. There are people who don't need her to prove anything and still choose to stay. Some kids grow up not in warm embraces, but in constant comparison. Not chosen, not believed in, not loved the right way. Some break under that, some give up. But then there are others, like Elena, who choose to keep going, alone, quietly, without waiting for someone to show them the way. Her story isn't one of revenge. It's the journey of a young woman who rewrote her own worth, through action, through silence, and through a belief no one could ever take from her. Maybe you've been the one pushed aside, overlooked, dismissed, but that doesn't mean you don't deserve to be seen. No one gets to decide who you become, except you. So what do you think? In a family, what truly matters more, unconditional love or living up to expectations? If you've ever faced unspoken tension with your family or found a way through it, leave a comment below. Someone out there might read it and feel a little less alone. And if you want to keep hearing real stories deep and raw that shine a light into the darker corners of family dynamics, hit subscribe to Family Drama. Because sometimes the story that matters most isn't about who was right or wrong. It's about who was strong enough to keep going, even without being right. Thanks for sticking with us to the end. See you next time.